right, thank you everyone. So yeah, my name is Matt and I'm the CEO of Cryptiv. At Cryptiv, we create enterprise wallet systems that allow large financial institutions or any corporation to connect to blockchain protocols like Bitcoin and Ethereum and handle blockchain assets like Bitcoin and Ether. But tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the challenges that large financial incumbents face when they try to grapple with what this new emerging blockchain technology really is. And the way I like to think about blockchain technology and the way we encourage our clients to think about it is to compare it to the early internet. In the early 90s, when the internet first came out, which was known as the information superhighway back then, it really just allowed people to move information from point A to point B in a manner that was faster and cheaper than any alternative out there at the moment. In a similar vein, blockchain technology allows us to move value from point A to point B in a manner that's faster, cheaper, and more secure. And I say more secure, but it's only more secure when done correctly than anything out there today. But just like with the early internet, it's never easy and it's never pretty. With the early internet, it was just really a collection of freaks and geeks that were sending each other messages on bulletin boards and sending each other files at incredibly low speeds. And today, when you look at the blockchain space, it's also a collection of freaks and geeks and cryptographers and hackers and traders that are really passionate about moving around value and really speculating on this new technology. So let's do a thought experiment. Let's pretend you're whisked back to the early 90s and you're the CEO of a big telecom or media company, like Time Warner, for example. And you know there's this new information superhighway thing coming out, and it allows people to move information from point A to point B. And that could be a problem for you, because after all, that's your bread and butter. You move information. You deliver information to consumers in the form of entertainment, sports, news, stock information. So what do? Well, back then, the telecom and media executives looked around and they saw the television, and they thought, perfect. This is how most consumers consume information. This is how they get their entertainment, they get their sports, they get their news. So this is a natural place to start. They were also inspired by a bit of pop culture. There was a movie called Back to the Future 2, in which the main character goes into the future, into the year 2016, and he sees how the world is today with flying cars and really weird clothes. And the thing about that movie is everyone was interacting with their television in this new way. They were making video phone calls, they were ordering pizza, they were having job interviews, all through the television. So that's what they did. They built something called the Full Service Network. This was a Time Warner project, and they rolled it out to about 3,000 households in Florida. And what it really was is kind of like your Rogers cable box. You could get the news, maybe some weather, some stock quotes. You could even do online shopping, order pizza. But the only problem is nobody really used it. Nobody liked it. They ended up losing $100 million. And we all know the internet ended up being the internet that we know and love today. But maybe we shouldn't laugh about Back to the Future 2, because they did get one thing right. In that movie, the absolute worst character ended up becoming the president in this horrible dystopian future. And just like Donald Trump, he had a pretty gnarly comb over. So maybe they got a couple things right. But going back to the blockchain dilemma that I brought up before, imagine you were the CEO of RBC or TD or one of these huge financial conglomerates. And you see that there's this weird thing coming out that allows people to move value. And what do? How do you adapt? How do you protect your business from this disruptive technology? Well, we encourage everyone who's interested in blockchain and interested in finding the answer to that question to really analyze what's going on within the blockchain world itself. So I'm going to take you through the state of the blockchain as we see it. And we have blockchain here in quotations because there is no one blockchain. There's actually dozens and dozens of different blockchain protocols, and the word has become a bit of a loaded term lately. But I'll take you through a couple of these different protocols, and then I'll leave you guys with a thought on how to approach this space in general. So when we think about blockchain, we put it into this spectrum. We call it the suits versus the hoodies spectrum. And generally speaking, most blockchain technologies and blockchain protocols or networks can fall into one of these two camps. So let me take you through a couple examples in both cases. So let's start with the hoodies. These guys really kicked this whole blockchain thing off. And Bitcoin, which is the most well-known blockchain out there, is the granddaddy of all blockchains. It really kicked this all off, and Bitcoin was actually the first step, and it was a labor of love by the people who built it. They solved this computer science problem called the Byzantine generals problem. And it was really cool and very interesting and allowed people to move value in the form of Bitcoin from one person to another in a peer-to-peer manner. But then the ecosystem started getting more interested in more advanced solutions. And a network called Ethereum started coming out. And Ethereum is important for two different reasons. First, it's a huge step in the blockchain technology itself. It was created by, well, it was one of the co-founders is Vitalik Buterin, a Toronto native. And the idea was Bitcoin's cool and it allows you to move value from one person to the next. But what if you want to enter into a more complex transaction, like maybe a bet on the price of gold or something like that? Bitcoin doesn't let you do that. So they developed a far more robust blockchain that allows you to enter into these complex transactions. And so that's really cool, and it really pushed the technology forward. The other main reason Ethereum is really important is because it created a new business model. Because unlike Bitcoin, which as I said was a labor of love by a bunch of cryptographers and techno geeks, Ethereum knew they needed money. They needed money to attract the best developers and cryptographers in the world to build this network. So what they ended up doing is they went out to the market and the community, the Bitcoin community, and they raised $18 million worth of Bitcoin. And in exchange, they gave these early investors this thing called Ether, which is the native token of the Ethereum network. And if you had bought it at that point, you would have been paying about 10 cents per Ether. And today they're trading around $16 American. So really big return. The reason I bring this up is because this inspired a whole new generation of entrepreneurs and developers to follow the same business model to create new products. And this is called the initial coin market, or sorry, initial coin offering, or ICO. And this is when you have an idea, you go to the Bitcoin or Ethereum community, and you do a very similar thing. You raise money from the community, you hand out tokens, and in exchange, you get the money to build that platform, and hopefully those tokens will be more valuable in the future. So here are three examples of initial coin offerings. Golem, which is basically a distributed AWS that allows you to contribute your computer power to this network. Economy, which is like an asset management platform for cryptocurrencies and crypto assets. And Augur, which is a peer-to-peer prediction market. And last year, over $250 million was raised in this manner. So this is an interesting and growing market, and it's a new form of raising money. Not to be outdone, the big incumbents joined the party in 2015, roughly. All the big corporations, including most of the banks, understood that this is a potentially disruptive technology, and they need to get involved. So they launched a number of initiatives. Hyperledger is one of the most well-known ones. It's being spearheaded by IBM, and it's currently under technical development, and it should launch its V1 by the end of March. Settlecoin is a bunch of European banks that have created a settlement blockchain for central banks, and it's launching in 2018. And R3 Consortium is a very well-known consortium out of New York. Most of the major banks are part of it, and they're also working on some blockchain protocols. One of them is called Corda. So the big question is, who will prevail? Will it be the suits who create a more robust financial infrastructure and just leverage this technology to lower their costs and bring efficiency into the market? Or will it be the hoodies who really disrupt things from a grassroots level and make completely new technology that allows us to move value in a peer-to-peer manner? The truth is, nobody knows. It's impossible to really predict. But I'll leave you guys with a really great quote by William Gibson. It says, "The future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed yet." And I would strongly encourage anyone, especially people working within financial institutions, to get familiar with the blockchain protocols that exist, especially the radical ones, because you really never know whether there's an Amazon or a Google brewing in one of these blockchain projects. And the power of the peer-to-peer value transfer is not to be underestimated. So with that, thank you very much, and I will happily answer any questions. What is the most radical? The most radical blockchain? I would say Ethereum is the most powerful and the one that you should pay attention to the most. Because before Ethereum, if you had a cool idea, you had to start a completely new blockchain, which means convince people to contribute their computer power to that blockchain. With Ethereum, you can just build things on top of Ethereum and leverage the infrastructure of that network, which is why it's so easy to do those ICOs and leverage that infrastructure.
I see that they're going into it, but they still haven't really acknowledged it yet. And take, for instance, Bitcoin. It's been out there for many, many years. And they've had a small little presence in the city of Toronto, but it really kind of got shut down afterwards.
Yeah, the reason I think long term this blockchain stuff and these, especially the public markets, will be disruptive is the sheer economic efficiency of doing transactions on these networks, combined with the fact that there's a huge swath of the human population that is left outside of the banking system. Right now, I think the number is about 2.5 billion people that have no access to a checking account or bank account or a Visa. And with a smartphone, you've got a point of sale, you've got a digital wallet, you've got all this stuff. So I think that's the main reason, and I also think that with that infrastructure out there, it's a matter of time before one of the big players, including some of the big banks that are flirting with Ethereum and other public blockchains, leverage this technology to basically offer cheaper services.
So I'm still trying to understand what blockchain technology is trying to solve. Is it the technology part, the backroom operation that blockchain is making more efficient, or is it because obviously you could bring banking to the entire world if you want to take the risk of providing transaction processing to people that don't have addresses or identities. So I'm trying to understand what value it's bringing.
So I guess it does depend on which blockchain you're talking about in terms of which value we're talking about. But if we're talking about public blockchains, I think, like you said, it is possibly technically feasible to deliver banking services to the whole world, but those are undesirable customers in many cases that banks or financial institutions don't want because they're not going to generate many fees. They might not have an identity. They might have other issues, and so I think that's a major factor as well.
Hi, I have a question over here.
No.
Hi. So this was a really interesting presentation. Not sure if I missed something about your business. Curious to know what Cryptic.
Sure, Cryptiv. So what we do is we provide basically the infrastructure for a financial institution to hold this type of value. So right now, if you give a bank 1 million shares of Apple or some gold, they know what to do with it and how to store it. You give them a private key that has $50 million worth of Bitcoin, and you give it to them, they won't know where to keep it and they might lose it. And so we provide infrastructure to basically create a system so that they can manage these types of assets, because we believe that this is kind of becoming more and more important, and it's reaching the mainstream, and institutional investors are becoming interested in it. All right, thank you very much.